Before fast food value meals, before delivery apps, before refrigerators were even common in every home, there was a time when a sandwich wasn't about flavor, it was about survival. During moments like the Great Depression, families across the world had to get creative with whatever they had, and sometimes that meant almost nothing. No meat, no cheese, no vegetables, just bread and whatever could be scraped together. What they created might seem shocking today. Sandwiches made with sugar, with ketchup, even with nothing but salt. But these weren't jokes. They were real meals that helped people get through the hardest times in history. And today, we're stepping into that forgotten world, one sandwich at a time. Butter sandwich. The butter sandwich is one of the simplest meals ever created. Just bread and butter. But in times of hardship, simplicity wasn't a weakness, it was survival. Butter provided essential fat and calories, something incredibly valuable when food was limited. For many families, especially during economic crises, meat was a luxury they couldn't afford. Even basic ingredients like cheese or eggs weren't always available. So butter became the main source of energy in a meal. Spread across bread, it turned something plain into something filling. There was also something comforting about it. Warm bread with melting butter gave a sense of normalcy, even when everything else in life felt uncertain. For children growing up in difficult times, this sandwich wasn't boring. It was familiar, reliable, and sometimes it was the best thing they had to eat that day. Sugar sandwich. The sugar sandwich might sound strange today, but for many children, it was a rare treat. Butter was spread onto bread, and then sugar was sprinkled on top. That combination created something sweet, simple, and surprisingly satisfying. During the Great Depression, sweets were extremely rare. Candy and desserts were expensive luxuries that most families couldn't afford. So this sandwich became a homemade alternative. It was quick to make, required only basic pantry ingredients, and gave kids something to look forward to. The crunch of sugar combined with the softness of bread created a texture that felt special, even if it was made from the simplest ingredients. For many, this wasn't just food. It was a moment of joy in an otherwise difficult life. Bread and dripping sandwich. This sandwich represents a time when absolutely nothing was wasted. After cooking meat, the leftover fat, known as drippings, was saved. Instead of throwing it away, it was spread onto bread. It added flavor, richness, and most importantly, calories. In times when food was scarce, calories meant survival. This sandwich may not sound appealing today, but back then, it was a practical solution. The flavor depended on the type of meat used. Beef drippings created a rich, savory taste. Pork fat added a slightly different texture and aroma. Every bit of food had value. And this sandwich shows just how resourceful people had to be. Salt sandwich. The salt sandwich is perhaps one of the most extreme examples of poverty-driven meals. It was exactly what it sounds like. Bread with a sprinkle of salt. No butter, no toppings, just salt. Why? Because sometimes that's all people had. Salt added just enough flavor to make plain bread easier to eat. It gave a small sense of taste in an otherwise bland meal. This sandwich reflects a reality many people today can't imagine. A time when even the simplest ingredients were considered valuable. Lard sandwich. Lard, or rendered animal fat, was once a common household staple. It was cheap, widely available, and packed with calories. Spread onto bread, it became a quick and filling meal. For families struggling to afford meat, lard provided a similar richness at a much lower cost. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. The texture was smooth, and when paired with fresh bread, it created a surprisingly satisfying bite. This sandwich shows how people relied on what they had, even if it wasn't ideal by today's standards. Savory survival combos. Ketchup Sandwich. The ketchup sandwich is still remembered by many today. Just bread and ketchup. That's it. It might sound odd, but ketchup added sweetness, acidity, and flavor to otherwise plain bread. For kids especially, this sandwich was more appealing than completely dry food. It was cheap, easy to make, and required no cooking. In many households, ketchup was one of the few condiments always available, and in difficult times, it became the star ingredient. Mustard Sandwich. Mustard sandwiches were bold and tangy. Even without meat or cheese, mustard provided a strong flavor that made the sandwich feel more complete. Its sharp taste helped break the monotony of plain bread. And because mustard is used in small amounts, it could last a long time, making it a cost-effective option. For many, this sandwich was less about enjoyment and more about adding variety to limited meals. Onion Sandwich. The onion sandwich was simple, but powerful. Raw onion slices were placed between bread. That's it. Onions were cheap, easy to store, and widely available. Their strong flavor made them a popular choice when other ingredients were scarce. The crunch and sharp taste added intensity to an otherwise plain meal. For some, it was even considered refreshing. Pickle Sandwich. Pickles brought saltiness and crunch to the table. Even when nothing else was available, pickles could transform bread into something flavorful. They were also preserved foods, meaning they lasted a long time. This made them incredibly useful during difficult periods when fresh food wasn't always accessible. Tomato Sandwich. The tomato sandwich was one of the more refreshing options. Fresh tomato slices with a bit of salt created a simple but satisfying meal. In rural areas, tomatoes were often homegrown. This made them one of the few fresh ingredients available to many families. Juicy, slightly acidic, and naturally flavorful. Tomatoes added life to plain bread. Filling but cheap potato sandwich. Potatoes have long been one of the cheapest and most filling foods in the world. Mashed or fried, they were placed between bread to create a heavy, carb-rich sandwich. It might seem excessive today, but during hard times, staying full was the priority. This sandwich delivered exactly that. Fried Egg Sandwich. Eggs were one of the most affordable sources of protein. A single fried egg could turn a simple sandwich into something much more nutritious. For many families, this was one of the better meals they could afford. It provided energy, protein, and a sense of balance. Beans Sandwich. Beans were a staple in many households. They were cheap, filling, and packed with nutrients. Leftover beans were often reused inside sandwiches to avoid waste. This created a hearty and practical meal. Mac and Cheese Sandwich. Carbs on carbs, but incredibly filling. Leftover macaroni and cheese, stuffed into bread, created a dense, heavy sandwich. It wasn't about flavor combinations. It was about staying full as long as possible. Rice Sandwich. A rice sandwich might sound unusual, but it was very real. When rice was more available than other foods, people used it however they could, even inside bread. It was simple, filling, and practical. These sandwiches may seem strange today, but they weren't created to impress anyone. They were created to survive. Each one tells a story of resilience, of people doing their best with what little they had. They remind us that food isn't just about taste, it's about history, struggle, and adaptation. So the next time you see a full fridge or order your favorite meal, take a moment to remember a time when even a slice of bread with butter or just salt was enough to get through the day. Because behind every simple sandwich, there's a story that deserves to be remembered.